If you're in the market to build a new PC, then perhaps an APU is a solution that you will be looking at. So in today's video, we're going to test AMD's new 5700G and compare it against the likes of a GT 1030 as well as an RX 550. And then on the CPU side, we're also going to compare it against some 8 cores to see where exactly this APU, or I think AMD calls it CPU nowadays, would fit in today's market. Let's roll those gaming and productivity benchmarks and then get back to the hotspot. So analyzing those gaming figures first of all, if you are in the market to get something that can play games at 720p or 1080p and still give out decent frame rates, of course, depending on the title and depending on the settings used, where in the games that we tested today, we were using low, medium, and in case of CSGO, we did put some high settings on, but we were getting a very smooth playable experience at these resolutions. And in fact, the performance was coming pretty close to that of the GT 1030 and also the RX 550. However, we got to look at the price point of those two graphics cards, in that at least where I am locally, the GT 1030 is readily available on shelves, and it also comes in with a very cheap price point in that it's not being scalped by crypto miners due to it not being favorable to crypto miners in that it can't make them much profit. Same with the APUs. They're not really going to be targeted by crypto miners, which makes them an excellent choice for gamers who see the MSRP, they see the review, and they want to go out and get that performance and not overpay for it. And so on one hand, I probably should put the box and the APU on that hand. We've got the APU giving out decent performance, but then on the other hand, we've got the 8 cores and 16 threads. And so that does raise the price if you're looking at it just for that graphics portion and to play games, where I would suggest perhaps looking at maybe the Ryzen 5 version or the Ryzen 3, which I think the Ryzen 3 has been announced, but it's yet to be released. So if you're looking to build a new PC and you want to get into gaming and you want to keep the cost as low as possible and still get a decent playing experience, then I'd say the Ryzen 3 version of this APU would be the best choice for you. But that being said, this is a Ryzen 7 and you are getting 8 cores, 16 threads of performance, and it is the Zen 3 cores that they are using. They're the same cores that they're using, for instance, in the Ryzen 7 5800X, though they are using half the level 3 cache. And so this is the drawback of going for the APU over the CPU. But that said, you are saving $90 if you wish to go for the APU, which does make it an interesting option in that aspect alone, where we can see with the benchmarks that we ran here today, Cinebench R20, Corona benchmark, as well as 7-zip, that the performance numbers were coming in a similar league to the 5800X, minus the exception of the 7-zip benchmark, which does heavily utilize cache as opposed to the CPU cores directly when it came to that particular benchmark. Though in terms of clock speeds, the CPU portion itself will boost up to 4.4 GHz all cores, and then for the single core boost, I measured here going up to 4.65 GHz. Keep in mind this is with the Ryzen Stealth cooler, which does come included if you decide to purchase the 5700G. But if we look at the Ryzen Stealth, this will actually be one of the 2 critiquing points I have about the 5700G, and that is I feel like it's not adequate enough for the 8 cores, 16 threads, and that this CPU and the dedicated benchmarks will go up to around 90 watts TDP. But of course, at these levels, even in my 23-degree ambient environment here during the winter, this was throttling performance when I continuously ran the Cinebench R20 benchmark. So in other words, if we went to summer, then we would get reduced performance if we were coupling it with the Ryzen Stealth cooler, and then it would be advisable to perhaps go out and buy an aftermarket cooler if you wish to get the most out of your CPU. And also in the past, AMD have included with their 8-core CPUs the likes of the Ryzen Prism and also the Ryzen Spire. And I feel like a Ryzen Spire type solution would be perfect with the 5700G if they wish to bring back that CPU cooler, which I actually kind of really miss the Ryzen Spire that they included in the Ryzen 7 1700X. If any of you guys remember that, do let us know in the comment section below. And now the second critiquing point that I have for this CPU is that it's going to tie in with my conclusion, and that is the timing and the release. I feel like it was launched way after the 5000 series last year, where they had the performance uplift, they had those new cores, everyone was talking about the Ryzen 5000 series, but then releasing something like this when we know there's other CPUs in the works, there's DDR5 coming. I do have to say the timing of this CPU does seem a little bit weird, in that AMD's hoping that people will commit to this CPU, especially in the likes of the 5700G, based on the performance that the Zen 3 8-core 16 threads will give. And I think if people are going to be spending that much money and they're budget conscious, then they may want to wait a few months or even 6 months to see what's around the corner in getting a better 8-core 16-thread solution, and even buying something like a GT 1030 in the meantime to game it out until the GPU prices become a little bit cheaper. Also, one more big factor to talk about which may deter people from getting the 5700G, especially the 8-core 16-thread option of the G series 5000 series CPUs, is that it doesn't have PCIe 4.0, whereas opposed to a Ryzen 7 5800X that does have PCIe 4.0. So this means if you put in an M.2 NVMe solution as your main drive and you need those higher speeds, you'll only actually get half the speeds, or the max theoretical speeds, as a 5800X and an M.2 that would support PCIe 4.0. And also when it comes to gaming, you will be at a slight, but ever so slight disadvantage. It's not really worth writing home about with current generation GPUs. Though ultimately, to sum things up for you guys, my opinion on the 5700G is that it's a good CPU, but if it had been released earlier, it would have been a great CPU. And I feel like the timing of this release is an important factor, especially when consumers now know that DDR5 is going to play a big role into whether or not you should purchase a 5700G. Though, do let us know in the comments section below what you think. Love reading your thoughts and opinions, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Ivo Emoji, and they ask, how do you make it work? I mean, Afterburner in CSGO. Mine doesn't work there, like it's the only game where it doesn't work. So to get Afterburner to work in CSGO, you just have to go to the properties and then go to the launch options and then type in the command allow third-party software, and then you can launch it and Afterburner should work after that. Hope that answers that question, and if you guys have stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, then be sure to hit that like button, smash that sub, ring the bell to get the videos as soon as they drop, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.